and Julian Ruddick from VUB on the floor. They will present the MAMCA stakeholder engagement methodology and how it was applied in the Renaissance project. Also, Maria Luisa Lode, I'm very happy to see her also on board. And higher? Farther. Thanks. And Julian will present the Energize tool. So you can choose where you want to start from.
Is there something first in the presentation?
It's let's see, same. We can switch. Technology will support us. So we can start from Energize tool here. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually just going to go to the website too.
Yeah. Just to introduce what it is, how you use it.
Oops. So hi everyone. So I'm Julian from the VUB. I'm going to present to you the Energize tool that we did in collaboration with Surf, Deep Blue, and VUB. So here's the main page of it. If you want to go on the website, you type energize.eu, and then it will show you the page where you can sign up and try it out for yourself. So what this tool does is that you can put in all the information of your energy community, and then it will tell you the size of the different assets that you would like to put in there. So it will tell you, so you can put in like the consumption of your buildings. You can tell, oh, I would like solar panels, and it will tell you, okay, so the size of the solar panels you need to install is 4 kilowatts, and it will also give you information on how much power it's consumed, what's the self-sufficiency ratio, and so on. So I'm going to log in my account, not Rebecca's one, to show a few projects I have created. I think that's the password. Yeah, so this works. So things you can do is you can create a new project. So you can give it a name just to remember which project it is. Then you can enter a location anywhere in Europe. So it can be Brussels here where we are at the moment. And so what this will do is it will take all the window information from this location to be able to simulate the power production of the solar panels and the wind turbines. And for this, you need to also select a reference year for which year you want to base your simulation on in terms of weather data. Then you put information on what is the current interest rate for which you're going to do you're going to borrow some money with a certain interest rate, and so you put this interest rate in here at which you're going to borrow the money. This is for the cost calculation towards the end. And then what you can do is you can create new assets. So let's say select this. So in your energy community, you need different assets. So here you can see all the ones that are available. So there's a public grid where you put the price of electricity. There's the batteries where you put the specifications of the batteries. A gas turbine, electric vehicle chargers, consumption data, then some solar panels and wind turbines. So all of these assets, you can add it to your energy community based on how you want it to be. And then the tool will calculate how much of each asset it's optimal to actually put in your energy community. So it sounds a little bit vague at the moment, but I will show you specifically one case. So one of our projects, we just want to, we have a house in Brussels. We want to put solar panels on the roof. And we would like to know what is the size of the solar panels we would like to put on our roof. Because maybe if we have too much, then it's actually not, it produces too much and we don't actually gain money because there is a cost of investment for the solar panels. So here, this is the project for which I entered the specificities for the electricity prices in Brussels, for the solar panels, and the location and everything. So when we press the calculate button, it will calculate this optimal size, and so we can see it here. What it will tell you is this line over here. It will tell you that you should install, based on the information you gave to the program, 4.924 kilowatt solar panels. Then below you have how much electricity is exported to the grid, how much electricity is imported from the grid, what the self-consumption ratio is, self-sufficiency ratio, and then total cost of running, total cost of investment for 1 year of having this setup. What we can do now is we can compare this to having no solar panels. So with no solar panels, obviously you don't export electricity to the grid. You will import more electricity. Then you don't have anything that's producing any electricity, so the self-consumption ratio is lower. And actually, you will spend per year 1,600 euros instead of 1,456 euros if you had installed the solar panels, taking into account the whole cost of investment and spreading the cost of investment over the lifetime of the solar panels. And then what you also have is, you can also see a chart. There is a graph here where you actually see, so here this is for every month, so you have the month of January to December, and for each month you see how much electricity was produced, with the solar panels in orange at the top. Then in pink you have how much it is, in pink on the higher side you have how much electricity is bought from the grid. In purple here you have how much electricity is demanded by it's just the consumption. And you have this graph for monthly, weekly, and even at an hourly resolution. So you see that the solar panels produce electricity during the day when the sun, which makes sense. And this was basically a short introduction to the tool, and try to keep it quite simple, but you can add different assets. You can have batteries in there, you can have wind turbines in there. It will tell you which size of the battery you should put in your microgrid, and so on. And so you can try to test it for yourself and see what results you obtain. Yeah, it's energize.eu, so just type like the name here, and then .eu, and you can access it. The calculations calculations need some time, so leave it a bit of time, but it will calculate.
Maybe I won't do the calculation maybe on my phone because
it's in minutes, but it works. It just needs to wait a little bit sometimes for some things.
Can this be used by single homes? Like residential people, just one house?
Sorry, I repeat the question in the microphone for the people following online. Can the tool be used for individual homes also?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the feedback we had, is that so you can put in the price of buying the electricity that you have in your contract, and so on. You can also, with your house, just use like, if you know your whole consumption for a year, you can put in your consumption for a year and choose like this setting here, Belgium residential, and this will simulate 1 year of hourly residential power consumption, which is not exactly your house, but it's quite accurate in a way. And so yeah, you can use it for yourself. But one of the feedbacks we did have in a previous meeting was that there was still like a lot of options to put in a way, so it was not super intuitive. But that's always a trade-off. You either need to have something that's more accurate, really, where you put in the efficiency of the batteries, you put in different things, or you try to have something that's very simple, where it will just be like one page. We could redo this tool with just one page, where you say, okay, I want these assets, this is the consumption of my house, this is the result. Here it's more complex, it will be more accurate, but yeah, a bit less usable.
But in any case, everybody who wants to use this would first have to create a login, and that takes a little bit of time. So it's not a off-the-shelf free tool for anyone.
Yeah, there is a login, yeah. It shouldn't take too much time, but yeah.
Why? How long does it take to create a profile?
So it's a calculation that takes time because you need to calculate the sizes for a whole year, taking different things into account. So yeah, the yearly calculation takes some time.
Can you also insert specific historical data? If you have, for example, 1 year data records, you can insert
Yes.
consumption profile, for example.
So these are this option over here. You have, so if you click on it, you will receive a template for putting your hourly values for the consumption data and so on. So you can do it, yeah. And there's also this for solar panels, wind turbines. So if you have an hourly profile of a solar panel that's normalized to 1 kilowatt peak because you need to size it, then you can put it in there and it will use this power profile instead of the one generated with the weather data.
One small question, if not, we should do it, I guess. Do we have the possibility to introduce government subsidies and things like that? Or do you have to calculate it yourself in your cost?
It's possible, but yeah, you need to understand a bit how it works. What you can do is you can put hourly prices for buying and selling electricity. So if you do the math yourself, you can kind of calculate the subsidies from the government. But there's no option here. I don't know, green. What was it?
Certificates.
Green certificates. Yeah.
Yes. No, but it should be in the next 2.0, I guess, that we have.
That's the thing, is we can add more options to do more stuff, or we can make it simpler to make it more accessible by more people.
Yes, but I mean, if you get that many euros for installing solar panels on your roof, you can probably, it's a bit of work because it's depending on country, region, city, street, whatever nowadays. So that should be an option I think we should add, because it's depending on legislation. So
Yeah,
we
sure.
should consider it, I think.
I think we can proceed. And
Okay, Maria now will take a couple of minutes to touch upon the stakeholder engagement aspect of the Renaissance project. So to involve all the actors that are involved in an energy community within our project, in our pilot sites and in our replication sites, we used the MAMCA tool, which is an existing methodology that can be used to involve stakeholders within the design and the decision-making of a project. Basically a project where you have different stakeholders that have different needs and wants to bring them together into a discussion. Up until now, it was mainly used within transportation processes, so we thought this is a good opportunity to test it out and to tweak it within an energy context too. So this visual gives the basic steps of this MAMCA procedure. First of all, you try to design different scenarios. What can an energy community in a specific place look like? Which forms can it take? And these forms, we want to test out which of these forms is supported the most by the stakeholders. So step one, the scenarios. Step two is identifying the stakeholders. Who has a stake in this, and who do we really need to talk to know what they want out of this project? Step three is trying to catch the objectives and the needs of each of these stakeholders. What do they want to get out of this project? And what is really important for them? Like the first graph you see on the top is one of these results where we asked a couple of companies on an industrial site where we wanted to install an energy community. What is most important for you to join such an energy community? And for them, in this case, it was reduction of the bill. You see this as a high weight that was not surprisingly very important for them. But also for other stakeholders, it can be environmental concerns, community building, and things like that. So it can be very different. What we do next in the fourth step is try to evaluate each of the scenarios we made based on what these needs of the stakeholders are. Which of the scenarios fits best these needs? So you have a preference ranking for each of the stakeholders that part of it. You can see it in the graph on the right. That's actually the resulting graph. On the x-axis, you see the different stakeholders. On the y-axis, it is depicted what their preferred scenario is in the color. So you see in this case, that there's no clear winner. The blue one seems to be a scenario that's preferred by a lot of people, but not by all stakeholders. So what we do is we try to start a discussion with everyone, look into the details. Why is it your preferred scenario, or why does it score less for another stakeholder, and can we find a consensus? Maybe we can tweak the scenario a little bit so it complies more with the needs of everyone. So we end up with a result that is supported by everyone, and from which we know if we implement this, all the stakeholders will agree with it, and it might go a bit smoother. What did we do specifically to this framework for the energy communities? What are the new aspects that we did in this project? First of all, we introduced a questionnaire. We started this whole process with a whole list of potential objectives for stakeholders, because if you ask them what is important for you, they can come up with 2 or 3 things, but they don't think about all the potential benefits they can gain out of it. So we send out a survey to see what is actually important for everyone. We also tried different ways of the scenario development. Sometimes we let the project leaders decide what the potential scenarios could be. There's also a case in which we built these scenarios together with the stakeholders from scratch. It was more of an awareness building activity and things like that. So we tested out different ways of doing that. Then there were variations in this evaluation of the scenario. Sometimes we used experts to just calculate, okay, which of these scenarios gives the most financial benefits or the most technical benefits. But sometimes we also let this evaluation do by the stakeholders. And this gives us an insight in maybe some misconceptions they might have. They might say, oh, this scenario scores best on financial benefits, for example, while if we look at it, being done by an expert, we get a different result, so we can get a discussion going on, you think this is better for your wallet, but actually we saw when we calculated that that's not the case. So that way stakeholders also learn from this process. Another thing that we tried with this MAMCA approach is we used it for different goals. Sometimes we just use it as a tool to raise some awareness, to raise the knowledge of all the stakeholders so they know which aspects come into place when you install an energy community. Sometimes we use it to test the support of some scenarios, and sometimes we use it to actually make a decision on which scenario to implement. So depending on the goal of your stakeholder engagement process, this MAMCA tool was a bit tweaked and tested out. And then we also added a feedback survey to our project to see what the stakeholders actually got out of this whole process and these workshops that we installed. We mainly tested them on their awareness. Are there things, maybe insights you have now after this workshop than before you started? How is your knowledge raised through this workshop? And also, do you think that this format works, or which part of MAMCA can be tweaked in the future to better fit your needs?
My name's easier there. Yes, I'm just giving an overview of the general findings and conclusions of applying MAMCA. As said, we have applied this already in different pilot sites, so 4 pilot sites, but in addition also in the 10 replication sites. So we have conducted this quite extensively. And I think it showed that it was quite a good tool to visualize different viewpoints, different wishes and needs, and let different stakeholders share their opinion and maybe also fears or doubts. And it was a nice tool to introduce people to the concept of energy communities, because on ground, actually, people might not even know what an energy community is or what kind of configurations energy communities can take in their specific location. So it was raising awareness, but also increasing knowledge on the general concept of energy communities. And yes, it opened the floor for discussions. But we also found that it was necessary that there are a few people that were guiding the process. So that would be researchers, but also people on ground that are actually in direct connection with the communities, and that they are informed about the community, that have personal contacts with the community. And yeah, so without local facilitation, with a local initiator, I think it is not that easy to mobilize the people. And yeah, we conducted also the survey, pre and post survey, to see what are the objectives, but also how the MAMCA tool was actually perceived. And overall, the general perception of the MAMCA tool was very positive. The stakeholders shared that they were happy about the process and that they have learned something about the concept. And then maybe in the future, or also a question that was arose before, was how do you involve people of underrepresented social groups, which could be, for example, elderly that are not very familiar with digital tools, or also communities that have a low income background. So it's there are different strategies that needs to be used to specifically targeting these groups. So that was the overall conclusion, but we have different posters for later on if there are any additional questions. Thank you.
Of course, whenever, and if you have questions, you can just raise your hands and we will address them without. So there is a question over there. I will bring you the mic.
I can speak very loudly.
Yeah, but from home,
Hi, very interesting presentation, and it's just out of curiosity here. What sort of strategies did you use to ensure non-discriminatory participation of these vulnerable people because you just mentioned in the last bullet point here that you put some special attention for the engagement of this sort of vulnerable group. So what sort of strategies did you use for that? And is this embedded in the MAMCA tool or not really? Did you use a structured way of selecting these people? Thanks.
Well, it's mainly a proposal for future MAMCA processes because it's not an intrinsic part of it, but it's just something you have to pay attention to. These were previously selected sites. We more or less knew most of the stakeholders. We had a person on the ground often that knew all the potential participants. So that was an advantage, I think, to get everyone on board. People that couldn't come to the workshop often did fill out the survey, so their objectives were taken into account, even though they were maybe not at the workshop to voice their opinions. It was taken into account. So it's easier to involve everyone when you have someone that knows all potential stakeholders, I think, so you can get them closer to the project. But we don't have a general strategy yet to involve all these vulnerable people. But
maybe to add on this, we have this objective in many case studies that's called inclusiveness, which specifically addresses this objective, even though the stakeholders might not be there. Also taking into consideration that if you are in contact with vulnerable groups, they might not be the persons that should actually be in this workshop that's very vocal, you know, like they need to speak up. It's maybe not the most inviting environment for this, so it's always good to have maybe a representative of social housing or other association and social groups that can represent for vulnerable groups in this specific workshop.
So we can go on with the gamification tool. I will be very, very short if the mouse is working. Okay, so I'm Rebecca Hüting, and he is my colleague Nicolas Giampaolo. We are from Deep Blue, Italy, and we basically worked on the user interface of the Energize tool and of this gamification tool. So I would like to have a short forward about not only the gamification tool, but the whole tools that you have seen now. We kind of worked backwards in the process of building up an energy community. So let's say that the gamification tool would be the first step. So what do you do when you know nothing about an energy community? You want to make people aware of the existence of this possibility in Europe. So we start with a serious game. You can also QR code the game yourself. It's online, it's active, and it's working, and it's tested already with all our partners. This is the thing that you would use to explain to your parents, to your nephew, to your niece, what is an energy community and how do you develop an energy community. Then the next step would be to get involved into a MAMCA workshop where your needs are taken into consideration, where you can develop scenarios and all that Shari had just told you. And then you can have the Energize tool to build your preliminary setup, to have a preliminary idea of how the energy community, your energy community, can be structured. And as a last step, you would use the Renaissance platform to work the details, to manage your own energy community, and to get into the process of being an energy community in your life, being a member of an energy community. So this is what we will do after lunch. So when all the sessions have been are over, let's say, we will have a physical board game where we will test together this game, so you can understand what we had in mind when we thought about a serious game and how to engage people who know nothing about energy communities and what it does mean to find someone who wants to be on board with you in an energy community, and what are the different steps that you might take to build one. It's, of course, a very simplified process, but we hope it's something that will help you and maybe your friends to start the process, let's say. That's it. And of course, later on, Nicolas will be the one who will lead you through the game. So he will be your boss then. Yes? You can introduce the speaker.
Thank you both. We will indeed have the opportunity to play the game all together afterwards. They really built a nice board game for today for us. And then if we don't have enough boards, because there are quite few people, we can also continue playing online. I didn't manage to finish it last time, but I hear there is at least 1 or 2 people that reached the top level and are on the board, so maybe finally it happens for me as well. So as said before, we had to have some kind of a reshuffling of the agenda to accommodate different needs, but we're very happy now to welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Achille Hanoset, from the Policy Officer in DG Energy.